Hey there, in this video I want to talk to you about the fear of speaking up, the fear of saying no, setting boundaries, the fear of speaking your truth. And I think it's a really important fear, if you have it, to work with it and try to overcome it or try to integrate it, because I strongly believe that this fear is subconsciously holding you back from healing and from creating the changes in your life that you so long for. And if you really get the hang of speaking your truth, setting boundaries, saying no, sharing your preferences, you will slowly start to feel safer inside your body and inside the boundaries of your body, because you will start to feel that what you are looking for is actually found inside of you and that you are capable of doing everything that you set your mind to. And this fear of speaking up is really what is subconsciously holding a lot of people back from expressing themselves authentically, from creating their art, from starting their business, from having fulfilling relationships, from trusting themselves, from feeling safe inside of themselves and thus feeling safe outside in the world. It's a very important fear to understand and to investigate for yourself and to heal the suppressed emotions and the pain and hurt and the grief that is beneath it or behind it from your past, so that this fear will not haunt you anymore subconsciously or consciously, and that this fear will not hold you back anymore from doing the things that you so desire to do. Because we all have our dreams, right? And often the fear of failure, of course, is holding us back. But this fear, the fear of speaking up, taking space, manifesting yourself, creating yourself, expressing yourself authentically, is what is holding you back the most. And because of our emotional immature society, we already suppress our authentic selves from a very young age because of relational trauma, situational trauma, collective trauma, familial trauma, so trauma from the family system. And it's important to overcome this fear of speaking up or setting boundaries and saying no, speaking your truth. Not because I want you to be the biggest human rights activist tomorrow on a stage. No, I'm not asking you to do immediately very big things, but because I think that the very small things in your life, such as your preferences, your boundaries in your relationships, the clothes you like to wear, your authenticity, your art, your ideas, your business, it all wants to be expressed and wants to flow through you and wants to be created in this world. It wants to be manifested. Your dreams want to be manifested. You have to find the power and the energy and the courage inside of you to start with manifesting yourself and creating the life you dream of. You have to start with taking action, and the energy that you need to take action is the energy that you use to suppress all of who you are by holding your no back, by holding your truth back, by holding your boundaries back, by holding your anger back. That's the energy you need to express all that is living inside of you and create the life you dream of. So why are we so afraid to speak up? Why are we so afraid to set boundaries? Why are we so afraid to share our truth and our preferences, our needs, our desires? Why are we so afraid to take up space, to manifest ourselves? Why are we so afraid to share all of who we are? You can ask yourself those questions, and often the answers are very simple. Like, I'm afraid to be rejected. I'm afraid to be abandoned. I'm afraid to be mocked, shamed, ridiculed. I'm afraid to fail. I'm afraid to be wrong. I'm afraid to make mistakes. I'm afraid people will get very angry with me. I'm afraid that my biggest fear will come true, that I'm not worthy of love, that I'm a bad person, that I'm nobody, or that I'm flawed. And this is where it gets interesting, because why am I so afraid to feel unworthy? Because then I will be confronted with the emptiness that I feel inside of me, with the grief and the pain and the hurt from my past, from the relational trauma that I have experienced in this emotionally immature world. Then I have to sit with the existential loneliness and emptiness and pain and grief, the biggest suppressed emotions inside of me. Then I have to face the reality that maybe existence doesn't have a purpose, or I have to face the story that I am telling myself deep down inside that I'm not consciously aware of, that I am not worthy. And I do not want to be confronted with that pain, because that is an immense emotional pain that I do not want to experience. That already from a very young age, I'm trying to run away from. I'm trying to suppress. I'm trying to deny. I'm trying to dissociate from or bypass. If you want to learn more, go watch the video Fear and Suppressed Emotions. So we are afraid to speak up, set boundaries, speak our truth, say no, because of the consequences consequences of what we think will happen, and because we do not want to be confronted with the pain, the hurt, and the grief that is living inside of us, suppressed and often subconsciously suppressed already from a very young age. And this can be grief, pain, and hurt, but there is another suppressed emotion, and this is a very important one, that is subconsciously holding us back often the most from speaking up, sharing our truth, saying no, setting boundaries. And this is an emotion often, next to grief, that we do not allow ourselves to feel because we are conditioned to not express that emotion, because we believe that it is not safe to express that emotion, because we have seen that emotion in our surroundings as a little child and we have started to hate that emotion, reject that emotion, got angry at that emotion because it was making us feel helpless, hopeless, out of control, dominated, small, and we made a deal with ourselves to never feel that emotion again. We have a judgment about that emotion. It's not good, it's not right, it's not correct, it's dangerous. What is living inside of us that is making us suppress that emotion is also making us afraid of speaking up, setting boundaries, sharing our truth, and saying no, manifesting ourselves, creating, taking up space. Saying, this is my truth, this is my reality, this is how I look at the world and I want to share it with you. And this emotion, maybe you already felt it or guessed it, is anger. If you are an anger suppressor, you are also suppressing your boundaries, your no, your truth, your art, your ideas, your wisdom, your power. Maybe in the past you had a very angry mother or father that was angry all the time or had a very dominating energy, and that really affected you. It traumatized you, for example. It broke you. It made you feel helpless because you cannot do anything as a little child when your superior, who is bigger physically, mentally, emotionally, dominates you with this anger, dominates you with boundaries, with control, with domination, like the unhealthy side of anger, right? That made you suppress anger entirely. So you probably didn't feel safe expressing your anger, but also seeing anger around you. And probably up until today in your daily life right now, you still do not feel safe or comfortable when you see or hear anger or when you express your anger, because it triggers the pain and hurt from your past. It triggers your relational trauma from the past. And as a little child, maybe you even started to hate or loathe the anger that you saw because it made you feel so helpless and small and dominated. You maybe made a pact or deal with yourself, like, I do not ever want to feel, hear, or see that emotion again. So I suppress it inside of me. And if I suppress it inside of me, then maybe outside of me, I will not see, hear, and feel it anymore. But that suppressed anger is not going away by suppressing it, right? It travels with you in your subconscious mind and your body, and it's triggerable every day, waiting to be activated, to be remembered, and to be felt and released and healed and integrated. And when you think about speaking up, sharing your truth, setting boundaries, saying no, and you ask yourself, why am I so afraid of doing that? And your fear is because I'm afraid that people will get angry, because I'm afraid that people will get physically aggressive, because I'm afraid that I will be rejected, because I'm afraid that I will be ostracized, because I'm afraid that I will evoke anger around me. Then maybe, 1, this is trauma from the past that you have to work with. And 2, maybe you're not actually afraid that others will get angry, but that your suppressed anger that you are not allowing yourself will be triggered and activated. And that you have to feel all the anger and rage that is living inside of you. That you have to express it maybe. That you are the uncontrollable one, the dominating one, that is making other people feel afraid and powerless. Maybe you are afraid that you will become the one thing that you hate or loathe or reject the most. And that you are a bad person because of that. And this is why you hold yourself back. Because deep down inside, you suppress that part of yourself. You judge that part of yourself because you have been judging it from a very young age, out of unsafety, out of pain and hurt and grief. If you recognize yourself in the fact that you do not like people who speak up too much, who set boundaries, who say no, who are angry or share their anger, whether it's unhealthy or healthy, if it makes you feel uncomfortable, then maybe it's time to take a deep dive inside. Start to ask yourself the questions. Why am I so afraid to speak up? What will happen? Or what's the worst thing that can happen? What will I believe about myself then? What's my biggest fear? What do I have to feel when that will come true, that fear? But also, am I allowing myself to express myself angrily? Am I allowing myself to share my truth, speak up, to share my wisdom, take up space? And if not, is it because of unprocessed grief, pain, or hurt from the past? Or is it because of suppressed anger? Is it because I am suppressing my power because in the past it was safe or safer for me to do, and now I do not want to feel that because it's maybe too much or overwhelming, and I keep on suppressing that emotion, and I'm afraid that that emotion will be triggered when I speak up, share my truth, set boundaries, say no, start that business, take action. So as I always say, fear is not the fear that we are talking about. And often it's not always fear. Fear is always the fear of the consequences of what we are afraid of. And often the consequences are, whatever words we use, the consequences are that we have to feel the unprocessed pain, grief, hurt, or anger that is living inside of us. Whatever stories we tell, whatever traumas we have experienced. Maybe your grandmother had a very dictatorial and dominant and aggressive father who was very hard and cold and who asked submission from their children. She was also living in a very different time, right? With very different women's rights. And she was so afraid and felt so small and hopeless and helpless as a little girl that the only thing that she could do was freeze and suppress that part inside of her to keep herself safe. But deep down inside, there's also, of course, pain and resentment and anger towards the one that is doing that to you, next to the pain and the grief. And this pain and this anger and this resentment on the anger shower, for example, the one that is using anger to hurt you, that is traveling with you. And you judge that. You judge people who do that because people in the past who did that, your father, for example, hurt you. So to keep yourself safe, you suppress it inside of you and you do not want to see it in the world around you either. So you try to keep the peace wherever you are and be love and light wherever you are, and you say always yes and have no boundaries and do not share your thoughts, your ideas, your visions, your creations. Do not ask the hard and critical questions. Because you are afraid to be rejected or abandoned, afraid to be left alone with all the unprocessed grief and pain and hurt. But you're also afraid that your anger will be triggered and activated. And that's so much and overwhelming that you do not know what to do with it. So you suppress it even further and you judge yourself for that, right? So in your grandmother, she carries that with her. She carries that pain and hurt and grief with her, and the resentment and the anger towards her father. And she passes that on to her children. She teaches her children that being gentle and peaceful and love and light and saying yes and liking everybody and making sure that everybody likes you, etc. is the right way to go. And showing anger, expressing your truth, expressing yourself authentically, that's bad. That's not something you do. That's not safe. That's too much, whatever the judges she has. And she teaches that to your father or your mother, and they teach you that. And this is how this collective trauma or the intergenerational trauma is passed on from speaking up or setting boundaries, and how it is playing out in your family system when you are a little child. So there's a lot to it, right? You can work with this on many layers. But what's important today is that you start asking yourself the questions, why am I so afraid to speak up or set a boundary or say no or share my preferences or my truth or manifest myself in this world? What's the worst thing that can happen? What's my biggest fear around that? What are the consequences of that fear? Which unprocessed pain, grief, hurt do I have to feel from the past when this fear comes true? How can I help myself with feeling that and processing that so that I can work with it, right? Overcome it, soothe it, heal it, and integrate it. And with the fear, do the things anyway, because the fear will always be there, but we can become friends with it. We can become known, acquainted with it. And after that, or maybe first, if it resonates with you more, ask yourself, am I afraid of being rejected, abandoned, and to be left with my unprocessed pain and grief? Or am I actually suppressing and not allowing the anger that is living inside of me and the energy that I need to speak up and manifest myself? Am I actually judging the people in the world around me that show their truth, that share their preferences, that set boundaries, that speak their truth, their art? Am I actually judging them, feeling uncomfortable when they do that, feeling afraid when they do that? because I'm actually afraid that my own suppressed anger will be triggered? Ask yourself that and be honest. Because if it's the latter, then it's very important to become aware of that and to start with allowing yourself and to start with allowing the people around you and to start with slowly feeling the anger, the suppressed anger and the pain and the resentment from the past and the judgments that are living inside of you, and slowly start to allow it. To not only be of the love and light and peace army anymore, but to allow all of who you are and all of human existence, right, inside of you. To allow the love and the peace and the light to exist inside of you, and to allow the power and the domination and the anger living inside of you, and to work with it in a healthy way so that you can use that energy to express, say no, set boundaries, speak your truth. Hi there, my name is Myrthe Glasbergen. I'm the founder and owner of Beyond Psychology, and I'm also a psychologist, coach, intuitive singer, and creator. And away from traditional talk therapy and coaching, I have created tools for mental well-being with healing music, poetry, spoken word, voice healing, and song that help you to reduce stress, overcome anxiety, regulate and master your emotions, and heal your suffering at the root. And if you want to work on the topic of this video or on the topic of one of my other videos, you can do this in 3 ways. You can work one-on-one with me, just check the link below. You can also check my web shop where I have gathered all my tools for healing, meditation, somatic exercises, visualizations, and healing music. And you can subscribe to my membership and online platform. It will give you access to all of my tools at once. You can now check it out for 5 days for free. Check the link below, start your free trial, and heal your suffering at the root. Thank you for being here and have a nice day.